Hey guys, this is your daily dose of movies. Today I'm talking about romantic thriller, The Tourist, with a budget of $100 million and rating of 6.0 by IMDb. French police working with Scotland Yard are on the trail of a lady called Elise in Paris. They are following and observing her as she goes to her favorite cafe. A courier gives her a package when she is seated in a cafe. The Financial Crimes Division believes the courier is Pierce and arrests him. Elise gets a letter from her former boyfriend, Alexander Pierce, in which he directs her to take a train at 8:22 a.m. to Venice, Italy, find a guy who looked like him, convince the authorities that this man is Alexander Pierce, and burn the letter. Elise burns the letter, but police are attempting to preserve it and are given orders to go and carry the ashes to the van in order to deliver it to the inspector. A mysterious man who is not associated with the police seems to be observing and following Elise. Elise departs for the railway station. Police pursue her to the station. She seems to notice them, then turns around and walks to the train. Because of the crowd, cops are unable to get down there, but Elise boards the train and departs. Meanwhile, the inspector is trying to investigate information with Scotland Yard about courier that brought letter to Elise. Inspector desperately wants to find and catch Alexander Pierce because he stole money from someone and owns $744 million in unlawful assets. However, Scotland Yard refuses to examine the matter. To learn more about what was said in a letter, investigators attempt to piece the letter together. Elise attempts to choose a guy while going through the train. She takes a seat next to Frank, an American tourist who is reading a spy novel. Frank is smitten with her right away. During their conversation, he mentions that he is a math teacher. Later, during a meal, Frank spots two guys who seem to be watching them and informs Elise, who is unsurprised since she knows. Police snaps a photo of Frank assuming he is Pierce. When the train arrives in Venice, authorities distribute Frank's photograph to a number of individuals but abandon the job after discovering that Frank is only a tourist and may not be Pierce. At the same time, a mysterious guy surrounded by Russian men adjusts his flight path to Venice after learning that Pierce is in Venice. This is the guy from whom Pierce has gotten rich. Elise asks Frank to accompany her on a boat ride to Hotel Daniele. Elise confesses to having affections for another guy, likely Alexander Pierce, during dinner. Later, on her balcony, they share a kiss, which is observed by the guys who are following her and Frank because they believe he is Pierce. The following morning, Frank wakes up to find Elise gone. Two men suddenly breaks into the hotel room trying to catch and kill him. As Frank recalls how to be a pirate, he flees by running over multiple rooftops in his pajamas, but is apprehended by the Italian police. A sympathetic investigator hears Frank's story about not knowing why these individuals are chasing him. He brings Frank out of prison and informs him that his story is true and that the guys chasing him are Belarusians who have a bounty on his head and think Frank is someone else. The investigator, on the other hand, hands Frank up to these same individuals in order to collect the money they promised. Suddenly, a strange boat driver comes and hands him a rope to attach his boat to the other boat. That happens to be Elise with a boat to rescue Frank. They are being pursued by the men. One of the guys jumps into Frank's boat and attempts to cut the rope. Elise begins to move backwards, bumps the boat, and saves him once again, so they leave together. Elise ultimately informs Frank that everyone is out to murder him since she kissed him and convinced the cops that he was Alexander Pierce, admitting that she is the one who got him into this mess. Frank discovers that Pierce stole $2 billion from a mobster called Shaw and is sought by the British government for tax evasion. Stunned by the news, Frank insists that he does not regret kissing Elise at all. Elise apologizes for involving him in the first place and tricks Frank off the boat at the airport by asking him to take the first flight back to America he sees. Frank says he loves her, but he doesn't seem to be leaving. Elise visits a government facility and it turns out she is a British secret spy. She runs across Aitchison, a fellow British spy who was among those pursuing her in Paris. Elise was meant to be working covertly against Pierce, but she fell in love with him and quit her job until now. She informs Aitchison that she is willing to assist him in finding Pierce right now since she does not want anybody else to be wounded. Of course, she fell in love with Frank. Earlier, she found another letter at the hotel with an invitation from Pierce to attend a ball. Elise wears a wire to a ball that Pierce has asked her to attempt. At the ball, she is handed a letter by the same mysterious guy from Paris who has been watching her, and she believes he is Pierce. The note is from Pierce, and it tells her where to meet him. As Elise prepares to leave, Frank enters and stops her, inviting her to dance. Nevertheless, while dancing, she attempts to persuade Frank to leave. Elise departs to locate Pierce, and Agent Acheson's men grab Frank, duping him into thinking he's Pierce and so on, but they're certain he's not, and they're only kidding to make a little fun of him. They both keep an eye on Elise as she walks into a trap laid by the gangster Shaw. The gangster threatens to murder her if she does not give the whereabouts of the safe containing the money Pierce stole from him. Agent Acheson does not intercede for his colleague Elise and does not permit snipers to fire at Shaw's band since he believes Pierce will arrive to rescue her. Elise exposes the safe's location but does not know the code, despite attempting to access it. Frank watches in horror as Elise is threatened yet again. When it becomes clear that Acheson would not assist Elise, Frank picks the lock on his shackles and flees to assist her. Frank pretends to be Pierce. Elise asks him to quit talking nonsense or else he will be murdered. Frank, posing as Pierce, informs Shaw that he will obtain his money by unlocking a safe, but only if Elise is freed and safe first. While Frank pretends to unlock the safe, Elise says, "I love you." Chief Inspector Jones suddenly issues the order for police snipers to kill Shaw and his crew. Frank and Elise are safe. As the cops investigate, Agent Acheson can't believe Pierce didn't rescue Elise, and Jones is angry at him for putting her in danger. Jones then notifies Elise that she has been fired from the police department. A police report notifies them that Pierce has been captured. Elise and Frank embrace as the room clears. When he asks whether she likes both him and Alexander Pierce, she says yes. To get her through this situation, Frank enters the right combination for the safe, proving that he is the genuine Alexander Pierce. Pierce had had plastic surgery in order to start a new life. Meanwhile, they apprehend a guy thought to be Pierce, who tells them that he was hired to appear as him but is really just a tourist. And Pierce was actually sending him just texts to show up somewhere and money, of course. Inspector seems confused and leaves it alone. The cops blow up a safe and discover a banker's check for $744 million in past taxes owing to the British government by Pierce. Elise and Frank, Pierce board a boat with the money. Finally, they can be together. Hope you enjoyed this dose of movies. Have a nice day. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya.